Baseball is back, and at Team Toyota, savings and selection are back too. With tons of new Toyota SUVs, trucks, and hybrids to choose from, and with our lineup of over 200 certified used Toyotas, you can find the right fit for you and your budget. Plus, our service and collision centers are here to get you back in the game in no time. Visit one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, or Glen Mills, or online at teamtoyota.net.
Hey, they're 1-0, Corey, to start the season. This is the Phillies Talk podcast presented by Team Toyota. I am Spencer McKercher, joined by Corey Seidman down in Washington, D.C. Corey, opening day in the books. And as Zack Wheeler said yesterday after his brilliant start, it's kind of that good feeling of you just kind of want to get it out of the way at one point. You get the jitters out, you get everything through and through. And now I feel the same as well. The season, the journey has started. We've been saying it, the last few weeks here. So we got 161 more, but the first one was pretty exciting. The back end was pretty exciting. The first 6 innings were, if you like a pitching duel, you had fun. But if you liked offense, it was not fun. But we'll start with Zack Wheeler and Mackenzie Gore. They were both fantastic on Thursday. Obviously, the shadows played effect. We heard a lot of guys kind of talk about the shadows after the game, including Rob Thompson. What was your takeaways from the first few innings of an exciting opening day win?
Yeah, I mean, what Zack Wheeler said, I agree with it. It's good to get the first one out of the way for several different facets of the team. For the offense to slump for 6 innings and then wake up in the back half of the game, that was good to see. Not just for it to result in a win, but for guys to make adjustments within the game. Some of that, as you mentioned, was owed to the shadows. A lot of it was probably owed to the shadows, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. But the other part of it was that we saw the bullpen, a member of the bullpen stumble, but then the rest of the guys pick him up. Jordan Romano gives up 2 runs to blow the save in the 8th inning, but Orion Kirkering, great outing. Jose Alvarado, great outing. Matt Strahm, seamless in the 10th inning to end it up. And, not everybody's going to be perfect every time out, but if 3 out of the 4 guys pitch well on most days, that might be enough. I think ideally, if all 4 of them do their job every time out, but that's not realistic over the course of a long season. But, depth in the back end of the bullpen. The offense through the first 6 innings, Bryce Harper said it was comical. That was the word he used. It's comical to strike out 19 times in a game. I mean, Mackenzie Gore threw 93 pitches. Philly swung and missed at 20 of them. And yeah, the shadows did play a role. I mean, it was easy to see from up top in the press box, and probably if you're watching on TV as well. And the hitters' swings will tell you that it affected hitters on both sides. Wheeler and Gore were both locked in. It also didn't help the bats that, Wheeler averaged 96.0 with his fastball. Gore averaged 95.8 with his. So pitching's always ahead of the hitting early in the season. The thing is, though, the Phillies play at 4:05 again on Saturday, and they play at 4:05 again the following Saturday at home against the Dodgers. And if you make the playoffs and you're playing in the NLDS and the NLCS, you might have 4:05 games then as well. So the excuse exists, but it can't just be, oh, then you don't show up offensively. Like, you have to be able to do something. You have to scratch across something. If that's manufacturing runs, if that's trying to, lay a bunt down or just be more selective, some of it was Mackenzie Gore, some of it was the shadows, but in any event, good to see the offense wake up late. Harper, Schwarber, and then Alec Bohm with the biggest blow of them all.
And, to wrap up the shadows, and we'll transition to the kind of the hero of the game, and Alec Bohm. He was the one that was the most vocal. He talked to John and Tom in the booth after the game, and he kind of turned around. John asked him, were the shadows affect him? He's like, you saw it, it's light, dark, light, dark, light, dark. And then he kind of called out. He's like, yeah, we got to stop playing these games. But then in the locker room, he was asked, what can you do? And he's like, there's nothing you can do, right? It's just the way it is, you can't control the sun. These games, even most of the games yesterday started at 3:00 as well, all throughout baseball. So
no, it's not. It's not a factor for most of the season. It's only a handful. It's only a handful of games where this impacts you at these 4 p.m. start times. It's just that they happen to be at the prominent points of the season, opening day, playoff time, when they try to put all games at specific times. So that's when it plays a role. But the Phillies, they're also, aside from getting out of the shadows, they're also not going to see a pitcher as good as Mackenzie Gore here for a little while, because the next 2 that they're going to see in the National Series, Jake Irvin and Mitchell Parker, not exactly big-time bat misters. I think the offense should be able to do damage against both guys. And then the Rockies, who, they have at home in the first series, is probably going to be the worst pitching staff in all of baseball. So not exactly any big tests until, the next portion of the schedule where you have Dodgers and Braves.
Yeah, Gordon, and let's transition down to kind of the hero, as I mentioned earlier, Alec Bohm. despite his at bat coming through in the 10th inning, I think one of my favorite parts of the game last night was Zack Wheeler, Rob Thompson, and Bryce Harper talking about Alec Bohm and just talking about, Harp's comments were great, saying basically going through all those trade rumors, it hurts, it stinks. And obviously Harper said that they were true. And for Alec Bohm to come out there and come through in the first game of the season, I'm sure that was just the weight lifted off the shoulders. He's talked that mentally he's been in a better spot, especially in the spring. But that coming through like that in the 10th inning has to feel great. And Wheeler's comments talking about they're glad that he's in here. And again, this is still the same core group again for the last 3 or 4 years. So it has to feel good for Alec Bohm.
Yeah, especially on day one. I mean, you don't want to overreact to anything too much because it's like, okay, now if he goes 3 for his next 40, but I'm not saying that's going to happen. Just that, it can go either way. But with Alec Bohm, what sticks out just more to me is that all offseason long, as he was being dangled in the market or shopped or however you're going to phrase it, even through that, you understood it because he's a 28-year-old cost-controlled third baseman who's coming off an all-star season. You understand why he would have value, but it never made sense in terms of like an on-field standpoint for the Phillies unless they got someone who's really good in return for him, because Alec Bohm is really good and he's really necessary, probably more necessary than ever before in this Phillies lineup because of the structure of the batting order. Like when I look back to Thursday's game, there was a strategic element that helped the Phillies win the game. And I don't want to overstate it because, if the batting order was the way it was prior, different guys would have come up in different spots. Maybe they still would have come through. But when you look at the 7th inning, when the Phillies tied the game and went ahead, the Nationals brought in a right-handed reliever to start that inning. They brought in Lucas Sims. The top of the Phillies order was due up. Trey Turner 1, Bryce Harper 2, Alec Bohm 3. The Nationals brought in a right-handed reliever, Lucas Sims, because 2 of the 3 hitters were righties, okay? If that was Kyle Schwarber leading off, Trey Turner batting 2, Bryce Harper batting 3, a lefty is coming into that inning to begin the inning, okay? You're getting a lefty on both Harper and Schwarber. Instead, you have a righty on Harper, a mediocre right-handed reliever, and Harper hits a game-tying home run. The Nationals bring in the left-handed reliever to face Kyle Schwarber 2 batters later. Schwarber also hits a first-pitch home run on the lefty. But that, to me, stuck out as a strategic element of this batting order that could be a factor all season long, because Harper homering, maybe next time if the exact same situation comes up for the Nationals in this series, they might start the lefty in that inning. Then it's incumbent upon Trey Turner and Alec Bohm to do damage against the lefty. So you kind of see why the Phillies like that right, left with Turner, Harper, Bohm, Schwarber. And Bohm is as necessary as ever because he has the bat-to-ball skills. He's a .312 career runners in scoring position batting average. And when you talk about utilizing the whole field, look at what he did yesterday. Single to right field in between first and second base, doubled in the left center gap. So I have big expectations for Alec Bohm. Last year, looked for most of the season like he was going to lead the National League in RBIs and hit 320 and hit 50 doubles, and things didn't end for him in a great way, but he still played very well for like 4 or 5/6 of the season. So I think that big year for Alec Bohm. He needs to continue to produce because he needs to get his big payday, whether it's here or somewhere else.
And it's funny too, because that ball was smoked too. The one in the gap in the 10th. I do want to credit, again, we'll transition here. I want to credit Bryce Harper too. That dude was hauling, what, from first all the way to home. And it was great to see Bryce show a little emotion yesterday too. When he slid at home plate to put the Phillies' 5th run across the board, he stood up and gave his signature like little fist pump. Then after Schwarber gave him the lead, a bat or 2 batters later, there in the 6th or 5th, I guess, 7th, whatever it was. But Harper our cameras caught Harper in the dugout going nuts. That was great to see. It was also great to see him go yard. Obviously, he started the spring off making contact, and he said this yesterday, he felt good in the spring, and then he kind of got to the point where he was ready to come back and get things going. He kind of fell into a little lull there in the spring, kind of fell off. His at-bats weren't as great, but he didn't homer at all in the spring, and then he goes yard on another opening day. That had to feel pretty good for him as well.
Yeah, it was Harper's 6th opening day home run. It's the first time he's done it since 2017. He did it in 2015, 16, 17, and he hit 2, back in 2013. So this isn't new for him to start a season out really hot. It didn't, when you look back at the home run on TV, it wasn't struck as well as some of his homers. I mean, Harper crushes the ball sometimes. That was just it was a beautiful swing. Obviously, put the Phillies on the board and it woke everybody up. 107 miles per hour off the bat. Schwarber, a couple batters later, similar spot, similar distance, and everything. But this has to be an MVP candidate type of season for Bryce Harper. different tiers of Bryce Harper. There's the MVP level. There's the very good level. They're all incredible. They're all incredible players, right? But there's a difference when you hit like 280 with a 370 on base versus when you hit like 310 with a 400 on base with all that power. So I don't know. I saw a lot of promising signs from the Phillies once they got past the shadows, once they got past Mackenzie Gore. You started to see like the balance at the top of the lineup. I guess a concern for me is the bottom of the lineup still pretty weak at bats yesterday from Brandon Marsh. JT Realmuto started the day with 4 strikeouts before coming through with that big triple in the 10th inning. But Brandon Marsh also had a golden sombrero. I think he was 0 for 4 with 4 Ks on opening day. He failed to get a bunt down late in the game that was important. Bryson Stott, not a great day for him. And I'm just curious to see how the lefties are going to, like, how it's going to balance out at the bottom of the lineup, because the Phillies want to play Kepler and Stott and Marsh every day. But 5 left-handed hitters in the lineup against a left-handed starter, I don't think that's going to be a common occurrence like you saw on opening day. That just seems a little much. And these guys are going to need to hold their own against those lefties. If not, you're going to see Edmundo Sosa. You're going to see Johan Rojas. You might see both those guys in the lineup on Sunday because Mitchell Parker of the Nationals is a lefty, but he's not like a tough lefty, so the Phillies could go with their guys again. If they do go with their guys again, then I do think you would see Rojas and Sosa start against Blake Snell of the Dodgers and Chris Sale of the Braves, because those series are coming up. But, everybody's talking about the top of the lineup. I'm more thinking about the bottom of the lineup. I'm more thinking about the bottom of the lineup because if there's a huge difference in the Phillies, if Brandon Marsh does what he did 2 years ago when he had a 372 on base versus what he's done for the last year and change.
And you mentioned that in our season prediction pod. The whole topic of conversation all offseason was the top of the lineup, but you really got to worry about the bottom of the lineup here. And yes, Stott and Marsh, combined 0 for 8 with 6 strikeouts. Stott scored a run, obviously, but yeah, man, that's the lineup. And again, we mentioned it on the last pod too. They're going to go as far as those young guys can take them. As Bryce Harper said, they're not the daycare anymore, though. These guys have now been here for a while, and they have cemented themselves. And if the Phillies really wanted to succeed, that bottom of the lineup has to get going. And then, it was funny.
Not everybody's going to have a good year. Like, just realistically, not everybody's going to have a good year. You're not going to have 9 guys that have career years, 9 guys that all reach their 90 percentile projection or whatever. But if you have 7 or 8 guys that have good years, that could be enough, right? Like if you have, if Max Kepler has a really good, if he hits 260 with a 775 OPS and 22 homers and 70 RBIs, if he has that kind of season, and if Nick Castellanos gives them a little bit more too out of the 7 hole. If Nick Castellanos was the player he was from May 1st onward last year, then you don't need as much out of Stott and Marsh. But it just can't be zeros like 7, 8, 9. That's what you can't have. And it was only 1 game. Obviously, it was difficult circumstances, but just kind of looking at things offensively. And then just Zack Wheeler. I mean, we've been talking for 15 minutes, barely even mentioned him, but just ho hum. It's like every single time the guy goes out, what it's going to be: 6 innings, 1 run, maybe even better than that most times.
And because I think it's one of those things where Zack Wheeler goes out on the mound. It's like, okay, yep, business is going to be handled. And that's exactly, he picked up right where he left off in 2024, yesterday in 2025 here to start the season. Only allowed 2 hits, struck out 8 over 6 strong innings. He was fantastic again. And it was funny because the game was cruising, dude. Both those pitchers, all of a sudden you look up, it was 45 minutes in and you were in the 4th, just because both pitchers were just dialed. Obviously the shadows might have helped it. That was the vice versa that Kruk kind of brought up. It helps the pitchers a lot. It's going to be exciting for the pitchers. I'm sure they kind of like the shadows, but as hitters, it's not as fun. Is there anything that you want to hit on? I mean, Turner was 0 for 4 as well, but as you mentioned in your article in NBC Sports Philadelphia, he saw 28 pitches, which is exactly what the Phillies want him to do at the top of the lineup. And it was funny, Rob Thompson pregame kind of said that I think Tim Kelly asked him, are you tired about hearing about the lineup? And he's like, yeah, no doubt. I literally talk about it every day.
So yeah, I mean, and I don't blame
the
Rob
lineup construction is great.
Well, no, the reason I don't blame Rob Thompson I'm glad he said that, because some of these decisions and were made and explained 2 weeks ago, and some people are acting like it's breaking news that. Whatever. I'm not going to get on a tangent about that. But, something else that stuck out to me. Yeah, Trey Turner saw 28 pitches in 5 plate appearances. That's a big deal. Not only is it a big deal because you need to see a lot of pitches as a leadoff man, but because Bryce Harper prioritizes being able to see a lot of pitches out of the on-deck circle. So whether that's the starter or the reliever facing Turner, it's a big deal. I would say that Orion Kerkering really stuck out to me because that was a huge spot in the game that he came into in the 7th inning yesterday. The Phillies had, they had just taken the lead, and Kerkering quickly found himself in a predicament, because of two bloops. One to center field that kicked off Bryson Stott and went for a single and an error, and then one that just fell in no man's land in left field. So quickly, it's second and third, less than 2 outs. But Kerkering, he has just so much confidence and so much stuff. It's not just the confidence; it's also that he has elite stuff: fastball, breaking ball, and he's going to be a really good reliever for a lot of years. You hope that he stays healthy, and I see future closer written all over him. Jordan Romano, you hope that was just a one-day stumble, but the fact that you have two righties and two lefties, that's a good bullpen. Jose Alvarado comes out, he's throwing 101 miles per hour, which shows that, there's some thought, okay, when you leave Clearwater, are you going to be able to bring it back up north? Yeah, he brought it back up north. So did Zack. I think Zack Wheeler hit 98 in the first inning. So Philly's arms are ready to go. And it's going to be a good season for them. We know that this is going to be a 90-ish win season for the Phillies. Whether you have them at 95 or 92, I personally think they're going to be in that 93 to 95 range. I know there was negativity coming into the season a little bit just because it was the status quo. People wanted there to be more change, but I just want to keep reminding people that I'm sure a lot of Phillies fans know this, but if you were to put every single fan base in baseball in a room together and you were to say you can have your roster or you can have the Phillies roster, almost every single fan base would say they would rather have the Phillies roster. The only fan bases that wouldn't would be the Dodgers, maybe the Mets because they're feeling themselves, maybe the Braves because they're feeling themselves. But honestly, I don't think – is there a single American League team that you would take over the Phillies roster? I don't know. And we're not just saying that as people who live in Philadelphia and follow the Phillies. I'm saying that as an unbiased person who watches thousands of hours of out-of-market games a year. This is a stacked roster in terms of offense, defense, bullpen, starting pitching, and they just need to – they need to do it. I think yesterday, opening day, a good example of a veteran team that just knew it wasn't out of the game and was kind of just waiting to erupt, and it did late.
For those of you who don't know, this man that I'm talking to right now watches more baseball than I know anybody watches any other sport in the entire planet. It's awesome. Dude, your baseball knowledge is fantastic. That's just a little plug for you. No more nice comments for you. I'm just kidding.
Well, some of it's just because I'm so locked into fantasy baseball throughout the season. I'm watching every at bat of my guys, but it helps with the job, man, because every team that comes in, I feel like I do know the strengths and weaknesses and intricacies of their game. But Phillies Nationals, I'm excited to watch Jesus Luzardo on Saturday.
Bang. That's what I was, Little preview here, man. Let me get your take. So we got Jesus Luzardo making his debut. I was just looking. There's not too many at bats, every day for the Nationals lineup that's seen him. There's only been, I'm kind of doing quick math here, probably about 40 at bats combined in the entire lineup. It looks like at most Luis Garcia has seen him in 6 ABs, but he's only hitting 125 against Luzardo. But again, as you kind of mentioned earlier, there wasn't that too many additions this year, right? It was not that big signing that you went out, but the trade did happen for Jesus Luzardo that kind of caught everyone off guard. And now we get to finally see him make his debut. His spring was okay. He looked good at points, was working on some other things at other points, but dude, I am stoked to see Luzardo pitch tomorrow. And what are your expectations against this Nationals lineup that, against Wheeler put up some good at bats, but again, it's still not, we talk about rosters. This lineup's not going to shatter the world in terms of expectations, but still I'm excited for Jesus on Saturday.
Yeah, I talked to him on opening day just in the clubhouse for a little bit before the game. I could see he was just walking around, bouncing around. He looked like he had a lot of energy, a couple days out from his first start. I just wanted to see how he felt coming out of spring training because I remember talking to him right when he got there, and he felt healthy and strong, and he had been already throwing. And, he averaged 96 miles per hour with his fastball in spring training, which is a great sign for a guy coming off injury, 96 plus with his four-seamer and his sinker. The ERA was high. A lot of times I'll say, who cares? If he comes out and he stinks in his first start, then maybe you look back and say, oh, maybe the command hasn't been there for a little bit. But a lot of times, like you said, guys are working on specific things in specific starts of spring training. Luzardo was actually very happy with how he came out of it, just the way he felt. Nationals lineup, they're an aggressive lineup. They like to attack early in the count. They have a lot of guys who make a lot of contact. And they did add, a couple veteran bats. Nathaniel Lowe, Josh Bell is still there. So there's some guys who can hurt you. But Luzardo just has such swing and miss stuff that I wouldn't be surprised if, he gives them 5 innings, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts in his first start. I see a pretty high ceiling in Jesus Luzardo. A couple years ago when he was with the Marlins and he faced the Phillies that year in the wild card round, or was it the wild card round?
It was. Yep.
It was, that year he was like a number 2 starter, big time strikeout guy with like a mid-3s ERA on a bad team. And so I don't think there's a lot of around baseball. I don't think right now Jesus Luzardo is thought of as like a number 2, number 3, whatever, but I think he can be. I think this is a rotation of guys that you can have 4 number 2s behind Zack Wheeler when Ranger Suarez is healthy. And you got Luzardo going Saturday, Aaron Nola going on Sunday, knowing that you only need 1 win to get a series win. That's always the objective. And Phillies are halfway there.
That they are. And yeah, that was kind of the motive, or I guess the motive is the right word there. Last year was series wins. That's what matters here. Just pile up some series wins. The Phillies will be facing Jake Irving tomorrow as well. I'm looking, there's 5 guys with home runs against him, and it's kind of wild. It's Kepler, Marsh, JT, Stott, and Turner, all with home runs against Jake Irving. Also, the average is there as well. Bryce has only seen him 6 times, but has a 333 average against him. But we'll see. Yeah, you just got to keep getting these series wins. And
the Phillies faced Irvin a bunch last year. I think they faced him like 4 or 5 times, and they got to him every time. You know, it was like 5 innings or so. He's not a guy who's going to miss a lot of bats. I remember one game where they homered off him 3 times, but Mackenzie Gore is not going to be on the mound Saturday and Sunday. I think the Phillies are going to do some damage offensively. They might come out of this series with a win. They might come out with a sweep, and then you have the Rockies coming up. You know, you're not trying to get too far ahead of yourselves, but for the first week, the schedule for the Phillies is pretty soft. They could come out of this 4-2, 5-1, leading into those big games against the Dodgers and Braves.
Man, that's where it's going to be fun, man. I can't wait. And it looks like, kind of looking forward to, because we'll probably talk to you guys either Monday or Tuesday next week, depending on what happens here with weather. The weather obviously does not look good. This would be the 3rd straight rain out on Monday, home opener wise, for the Phillies if they don't get it in, which would stink. But we'll keep an eye on the weather. We'll keep an eye on this team this weekend down in Washington. Dude, do you have any it's a little off day today for the fellas and for yourself. I know Kruk and Tom said they were going to be like kind of mingling around Washington, D.C. Do you have any big plans today?
I figure they're going to be like with politicians schmoozing.
Imagine John Kruk on Capitol Hill.
I never learned my lesson. I should have had an additional layer yesterday at opening day. I think I got
cold,
kind of sick. Yeah, I came out of it with a sore throat, so I'm just going to be resting up today. It was like 45 degrees on opening day in D.C., but it's going to be 80 degrees on Saturday, so a humongous temperature change. So I'm just trying to stay healthy, man. I'm in for the 162 grind. Can't be getting sick here early. So thanks to everybody out there listening to the Phillies Talk podcast. He is Spencer. I'm Corey. Catch you soon.